Imagine a country where most students can't really understand what they're reading. Now, what if the solution to that huge problem wasn't some big secret, but a missing piece in their education that we've just been overlooking for years? Let's dig in.
76%. Just let that number sink in for a second. According to the 2022 PISA results, that is the percentage of 15-year-old students in the Philippines who can't properly understand a simple text. You know, this isn't just a statistic. It's a quiet national emergency happening in classrooms every single day.
So that leads to the big questions, right? Why is this happening on such a huge scale? And more importantly, what does the evidence actually say is the real way forward? We're going to have to look past the headlines, get to the root cause, and uncover the powerful, evidence-based solution that's been there all along. Okay, so first things first, let's just lay out the hard evidence. This is not a new problem, but the data really shows just how deep and persistent it's become. And when you look at the data, you see this problem runs deep. I mean, it's affecting every level of education. You've got the PISA results for teenagers, sure, but look at the foundation. A 2019 assessment found a growing number of young students with 0 scores, meaning they couldn't read a single word. And fluency for third graders was actually going down. This all points to a systemic failure, not just some isolated issue. And this quote from that national assessment report really just drives the point home. This isn't about numbers on a chart. It's about a growing group of kids who are being systematically failed by the educational system year after year. So where exactly is the system breaking down? Well, the research points to a single critical failure point in a child's educational journey. And the best way to think about it is as a missing bridge.
So here it is. This is the problem. For the first few years of school, kids are taught to read in their local mother tongue. Makes sense. But then, bam, in grade 4, the entire system just switches. The language of instruction becomes English for really complex subjects like science and math. And this happens without any proper, structured transition. They're basically being asked to cross this massive linguistic chasm with no bridge to get them to the other side.
This sudden, completely unsupported shift leads to a phenomenon that researchers call barking at print. And that term is, well, it's striking because it's so accurate. It means students can mechanically sound out the English words on a page. They can make the right noises, but they have absolutely no idea what those words actually mean.
Literacy expert Dr. Timothy Shanahan put it perfectly. Decoding without meaning isn't really reading. It's just making noise. I mean, think about it. If a student can pronounce the word photosynthesis but has never heard it before and has no concept of what it is, they haven't learned a thing. They've just barked at the print. Now, this whole barking at print thing, it leads directly to a really common misunderstanding of the solution. A lot of people hear reading crisis and they immediately think, oh, the answer is more phonics, more decoding practice. But for this specific problem, that's like trying to build our missing bridge with only half the materials you need. Now look, the gold standard for teaching reading is an approach called structured literacy, which you might know as the science of reading. And it's absolutely the right place to start. It's systematic, it's explicit, and it teaches every layer of language. Phonics is a huge part of it, for sure, but it's just one piece of a much bigger, more complete system.
So if structured literacy is the answer, why would a heavy focus on just one part of it, phonics, be called woefully inadequate for these exact students? What's that approach missing?
And here's the core of it. Multilingual learners are facing what researchers call a dual bottleneck. Think about it. They're being forced to learn how to read a new language, English, at the exact same time they're learning how to speak and understand it. Because of this, their biggest hurdle usually isn't sounding out the words. It's the lack of oral language, the vocabulary and the sentence structures they need to unlock what the text actually means. Okay, so if a narrow focus on just decoding isn't enough, what is? Well, the evidence points to a complete, dual-focus framework that builds the entire bridge, not just one side of it. And here is that big paradigm shift. The solution isn't just about teaching reading differently. It's about redefining what learning to read even means for a multilingual student. It needs a dual focus, what's called the SL+O-L framework. One part is structured literacy that teaches the mechanics of how to read the words. The other part, which is just as important, is systematic oral language development to teach what those words actually mean. The key insight here is that this isn't an either-or debate. It's a Yes, and solution. Yes, we absolutely need the science of reading and systematic phonics, and we have to simultaneously and systematically build the English vocabulary and comprehension skills that give those decoded words meaning. That second part, that's the crucial piece of the bridge that's been missing all this time.
So this framework sounds powerful in theory, but what does it actually look like in the classroom? How do we build this bridge step by step? Well, the evidence points to a really clear three-phase sequence.
It's a really logical progression. In phase 1, you build a rock-solid literacy foundation in the student's first language. At the same time, in phase 2, you dedicate significant, systematic time to building that L2 oral bridge, teaching English speaking and listening skills. And only then, in phase 3, do you explicitly teach English phonics, connecting those new sounds to the oral vocabulary they have already learned and mastered. Now, following this sequence leads to a huge policy change. Instead of just pushing kids across that bridge because they hit a certain birthday, the transition has to be criteria-based. Students should only move to English language instruction when they meet clear benchmarks for fluency in their first language and oral proficiency in English. It's about being ready, not just about the calendar. And this is crucial. This dual focus approach also leads to much fairer assessments. I mean, using an English-only reading screener on these kids isn't just unfair, it's invalid. The recommended practice is to assess in both languages. It's the only way for teachers to tell the difference between a student who's just struggling with a new language versus one who might have an underlying reading disability like dyslexia.
And really, this is what it all comes down to. The whole goal of this evidence-based framework is to solve the core problem, to take students from that frustrating, meaningless act of barking at print and guide them toward deep, genuine reading comprehension. So we're left with this thought. The literacy crisis in the Philippines is severe, but it is solvable. The solution isn't to reinvent the wheel, but to finally build the two-part bridge that students have needed all along. What if that's the key?